Heinrich Neuhaus is reasonably considered one of the greatest piano teachers ever existed. Everyone wanted to study with him. His lessons often turned into public masterclasses, drawing teachers and students from all over the Soviet Union who came just to listen. It's hard to find another music teacher who had so many extraordinarily gifted students.
Первую премию на конкурсе получил пианист Яков Зак.
However, he was sometimes criticized for favoring his most famous and monstrously talented pupil, Sviatoslav Richter.
Some students criticize Neuhaus for choosing his idols, especially Sviatoslav Richter. But I understand this, because it was hard not to fall under Richter's hypnotic influence.
To the point where even another of his great students, Emil Gilels, was somewhat overshadowed. Neuhaus was known for his imaginative, poetic teaching style. He encouraged students to use extra musical associations, believing they led to deeper artistic expression. This approach was widespread in Eastern Europe, thanks to teachers like him. I was taught this way too. My teachers often used vivid imaginary and extra musical ideas to inspire me beyond just technical precision. And what's really interesting about him is that he rejected books focused solely on technique. For him, technique must always be connected to music. For Neuhaus, art manifests the remarkable achievements of human spirit, and a student must feel this grandeur and understand the preciousness of music they play. This reverence, this understanding fuels a self-sacrificing attitude and dedication to music making, which is so crucial for achieving great success in music. In this video, I'll share some amazing principles Neuhaus used in his teaching practice, and also I'll give you a concise summary on a chapter dedicated to piano playing technique. But before we continue, just a quick reminder. On my Patreon, we have monthly Zoom meetings with passionate piano lovers and my students. We chat about all things piano, and you can ask me anything. Join us and be part of this great community. Neuhaus insists that developing an artistic image should begin simultaneously with the initial stages of learning the piano. From an early age, students must learn to express the character of the piece, playing a sad melody with sadness, a lively one with energy, and a solemn one with grandeur. So even when we work with small children and play something as, let's say, simple as this, we nevertheless have to speak about how to express the character and what is actually the character, what is the story behind this music. So the goal is not only to equip students with a proper technique, but also to achieve complete clarity in their artistic and musical intentions. Neuhaus emphasizes that studying a piano piece should resemble how a conductor analyzes a score. That's why it's so useful to actually practice with the score without an instrument, just looking at the score and planning everything and just imagining things in your head, so you would get a very clear idea about how you want to play it. Because when we actually practice, pretty often we kind of don't see the forest behind the trees. We're so consumed with all the little tasks that we lose the whole picture. And paying special attention to key turning points such as transitions between themes or modulations. So for example, if we play something like this, we don't have anything in the score, but just looking at the score and analyzing the harmonic progression, and then a harmonic change, we could actually use this as an opportunity to play it with a different emotion, thus bringing some emotional variety to our interpretation. So our task, Neuhaus writes, both small and immensely important, is to play our incredible piano repertoire in the way that captivates the listener, making them love life more deeply. feel more intensely, desire more strongly, and understand more profoundly. Naturally, a pedagogy that sets such goals goes beyond mere instruction. It becomes a form of true education, shaping not only musicians, but individuals. The rhythm of a musical piece is often compared to the pulse of a living organism. It should not be equated with a ticking of a clock, or swinging of a pendulum, or the beat of a metronome, as those represent rigid matter, not rhythm. So instead, rhythm in music resembles natural phenomena like breathing, ocean waves, or the swaying of a wheat field. That's why I also don't suggest to my students to play with the metronome much, because I want them to develop an ability to generate that rhythm themselves. For this, counting works, or tapping with your feet, so you would generate the rhythm and teach yourself to actually feel it profoundly in your body, rather than relying on an external force such as metronome. Neuhaus highlights brilliantly how the sense of time manifests differently in different pianists, especially when sight reading in four hands. Some pianists, when things don't go smoothly, which happens often when you sight read, will slow down or stop or correct, repeat sections. However, a musician who truly feels the flow of the music, who understands that everything flows, as Heraclitus said, would rather skip a detail or play a wrong note than stop. Neuhaus also brilliantly emphasized the importance of syncopation, even humorously calling it a musical citizen with its own character, expression, and meaning, one that should never be confused with anything else. And I also pay a lot of attention to syncopation, as it always represents a special event in music. So syncopated rhythms, or notes which are off strong beat and connected, tied to the next beat with a slur, those are very powerful tools for expressiveness, and you can easily recognize whether a person is mature enough as a musician or not. Let me give you an example. So in this part, an execution like this is wrong, because I didn't pay attention to that emerging D sharp, which is a syncopated note because it appears on the fourth beat and it's tied to the next beat. So our aim is to play this note stronger and then play the next first beat softer, because we want to keep listening to this note, especially because it's a raised pitch. So instead of D, we now have D sharp, which means that the tension rises. So this is a better execution, because now I've shown some attitude to this syncopated note. So let's move to the technical chapter. Neuhaus has a brilliant chapter on piano playing technique, which aligns really well with modern findings on piano playing efficiency, and with my own approach, actually. So here are a couple of great insights from his books. He breaks all piano technique into 8 elements, starting with the first element, playing a single note. And this is amazing, because we think like, okay, playing one note, what can be easier? Actually, try that. Try to play one note, but with different emotions, as Neuhaus suggests. So, for example, you have a very excited A, or a very tender, very gentle, and very timid A. Or you have a very imperative A. All these different characters, they need a different sound, different touch, different attitude, and different body usage, and different emotions. So I have to actually feel that emotion in order to produce it. And this is a really great exercise to do, for example, with children as well, because it helps us to explore different ways to use our body, while also realizing that dynamics aren't just a technical aspect. They convey emotions, colors, and character. The second element is playing a few notes, like within one hand position. For example, practicing a trill. And Neuhaus suggests practicing trills in 3 different ways. First, using just fingers, lifting them lightly, a little bit above the keys. But making sure that all fingers move naturally instead of isolating just one. So if you lift the third finger, you also lift fingers 4 and 5. So you lift the whole right side of the hand palm. When you lift the second finger, make sure that you also have enough relaxation between the second finger and the thumb. The second method is even harder, playing the trill without lifting the fingers at all. So here you feel not only how the key goes down, but you also feel how it goes up, because you stay with the key all the times, literally. And this is a great way to feel where is the point of the sound, which is not at the bottom of the key, as we know, but somewhere midway. And this is also a great way to master double action in piano playing, because as you might know, we are able to produce multiple sounds, not letting the damper to cover the string. My double action, this piano is unfortunately a little bit sluggish, but here's better actually, yeah, you see. I'm playing without the pedal. But you might hear that the string is not blocked. Yeah, so we can actually play trills like that, without the pedal, inside the keys, which creates amazing effects, especially in some Debussy. So we have those kind of transparent, very, very light trills, which are great for Chopin, Debussy, and late Romantics. And the third way to practice trills is to actually use more of a forearm rotation motion. And for this, the optimal fingering is to skip one finger by playing with fingers 1 and 3. So now I don't really use I don't move my fingers, but I rely on a forearm rotation. And it's easier to do it skipping one finger, so either 1-3 or 2-4. Yeah, or even 3-5. Yeah. So when we have neighbor fingers, we will inevitably move fingers more, because there is not enough room for rotational element. That's why whenever you have such a situation, you can play with fingers 1-3, relying on the forearm rotation, which might be easier if you master this technique than moving your fingers so quickly. The third element is scales, and Neuhaus makes a strong case that when switching position in scales, the fifth finger knuckle should go down, not up. So you might observe in some beginner players, and a lot of beginners and intermediate players play scales like this. Watch my fifth finger knuckle. Yeah? So you might see something like that. This is wrong, because it's not efficient and you can't play scales really quickly like that. So instead, we have to develop a habit of going actually a little bit lower with the fifth finger knuckle, although this is a counterintuitive way to play scales. So here we go down. So that's a very important part of your piano playing development, to have your position changes, to have them really optimized in scales and arpeggios. So the fourth element is actually arpeggios. And unfortunately, I have to say that Neuhaus didn't dwell too much on this in his chapter. Probably he felt bored at that moment, speaking about technique so much. He simply stated that arpeggios must be efficient and that movements should be clever. So you have to move in a clever way between positions. And since this is such an important topic, I have actually dedicated a special video on arpeggios where I go into much more detail what does it actually mean to move clever between positions. So check it out. The fifth element is double notes, such as octaves, and Neuhaus encourages pianists to be as cunning as the fox, as resourceful as Ulysses using small, precise movements with minimal effort and tension. And he suggests that in particularly difficult passages, instead of forcing speed and power right away, focus first on accuracy and ease. So instead of trying to break through with tension, you first start with a moderate tempo and you try to achieve as much relaxation between each single octave as possible. So you practice for a while like this, gradually raising the tempo, but making sure that you feel yourself as efficient, that you are still able to relax really quickly between the octaves. And as usual, I have a special video on the octave. Neuhaus himself makes a coming out, and he reveals that he actually struggled with octaves and wide chords due to his relatively inflexible hand. And he overcame those difficulties through 3 key principles. First, extreme economy of motion, sharpening his awareness of every motion, every movement. The second, unwavering determination, refusing to be discouraged by obstacles. And the third, patience and persistence, working tirelessly towards his goal. And the most crucial aspect of octave technique, according to Neuhaus, and I absolutely agree with him, is creating a firm half ring from the tip of the 5th finger to the tip of the thumb with a dome-like hand shape. So the wrist must be lower than the knuckles, according to Neuhaus. I would say that it's actually kind of okay if your wrist is at the level with the knuckles, but it must not be higher. This is of course especially difficult for smaller hands. But nevertheless, even for pianists with smaller hands, Neuhaus suggests to diligently practice the octaves to be able to maintain the wrist lower than the knuckles, or at least at the level with the knuckles, if you ask me. Neuhaus also suggests using passages from actual great pieces as technical exercises by just playing excerpts from pieces, and I really love this method. That's why in my most comprehensive course on piano playing efficiency, I don't just use exercises and etudes. I actually select carefully excerpts from actual pieces and use them as exercises. And I've also created detailed tutorials on 10 Chopin etudes and a number of famous Rachmaninoff works. So check out this course by following the link in the description, and right now there is a flash sale 50% to this course, which is running for only a few days. The 6th element is chords, and for Neuhaus the most important thing in chords is absolute simultaneity. All notes must sound perfectly together, and I have to say that this is extremely difficult, especially on modern Steinways, because in Steinway's pianos quite often you have a quite noticeable resistance. Like here in this piano I also have it. So when you press the key really lightly, there's like that last stage where you need more pressure to get through that small resistance gap. And unfortunately, because of that, well, this is a necessary feature, of course, for other things, but this makes playing the chords kind of hard. It's really difficult to make all the sounds to sound absolutely together. Like you might notice that they were not exactly super togetherish. No. It was slightly better, but still, it's not like 100% together. And if you listen to even great recordings by famous pianists, you might notice that their chords very often are not really super together. So if you struggle with your chords to be perfectly together, just remember that it's actually really difficult. It's not just your problem, it's, problem we all share. What helps, however, to make it sound a little bit more togetherish is to voice the chords. So for example, just because I hit that upper E flat a little bit stronger, it sounds kind of a little bit more organized because it's voiced. So you can use this trick to make your chords sound nicer, even if they are not perfectly together. And Neuhaus also repeats an essential piece of advice, one I've given at least 1,000 of times in my life and at least a dozen of times on this channel, but it's always worth repeating because it's so important. After playing a long chord, release as much tension in the hand as possible instantly. So we never stay tense in the hand after we play a chord. So this is a correct execution, providing a short impulse and releasing as much tension as possible. The seventh element is leaps and position shifts. And Neuhaus reminds us that the shortest distance between 2 points on the keyboard is a curve. So we never move in straight lines. We never move horizontally. We would rather use either the upper curve or a lower curve sometimes. So for example, I would not move like that because this creates a lot of tension. I would rather jump off, release the fingers on the go, use a curve trajectory. And what is also important, and what I actually never thought about, but Neuhaus cleverly pointed on it, is that when you approach the next sound, you have to approach it, you have to press the keys strictly vertically. And I was doing it intuitively for the whole life, and I never thought about this actually consciously, but he really points on it. So if you press the keys a little bit like in the angled way, like this, so then you're less likely to be precise and the sound is going to be very harsh. So despite the fact that we are moving right and in a kind of like curved trajectory, you have to approach these keys strictly from above. Because moving sideways is not going to work nicely. The eighth element is polyphony, and as we know, Bach wrote his inventions to teach players to actually play legato, to play expressively, to play in a singing way. But let's be honest, piano is a percussive instrument. That's why Neuhaus gives us a beautiful paradox. Only by demanding the impossible from the piano can you achieve everything that is possible. It means that when we play fugues or any other polyphonic works, one should aim to reach impossible, to play expressively all the voices, carefully following the principles of phrasing and expressiveness. And at his most poetic moment, Heinrich Neuhaus writes, "When I play Bach, I am at peace with the world and bless it." But if you struggle to even memorize fugues, here's a special video where I explain how to do it efficiently. Thanks for watching this and see you next time.